In May of this year, I turned 25 years old, and across all of my accounts, I had saved just over $250,000. But then, about a month later, I quit my job. And since I'm trying to do a better job of actually documenting my journey to financial freedom, I wanted to make this video to explain what happened and what's coming next. But for anyone who might be new, let me rewind a little bit and explain how we actually got here. Since I graduated college back in 2022, I've been doing pretty much everything I possibly can to live on as little as possible. And there's a few different ways that I did that. So for one, when I moved out of college, I continued to live with roommates just as I had in college. And this really saves money in an area as expensive as the one I live in. Here in Northern Virginia, average rent is probably around $2,000 a month. You can definitely pay more than that if you want to. So living with roommates helped me keep my expenses way, way lower. The other really big thing I did is I still haven't bought a car even 3 years after college. I've just been going everywhere on my bicycle, which means no gasoline, no maintenance, and of course I never had to pay for a really expensive car in the first place. This also means I almost never eat out except on a few occasions. I don't really buy a whole lot of things I don't need. I have absolutely zero subscriptions. Really, the only thing that I kind of splurge money on is my gym membership. And what this has allowed me to do is live on less than minimum wage. So in 2023, which was the first full year that I was living on my own, I think I spent $19,500 in the year. And then last year, 2024, I spent $20,045. I'm not sure what it'll be this year, but probably something about the same. Here in Virginia, that's less than minimum wage, which is I think $12 an hour last I checked. And the reason that I'm doing this is I want to reach financial freedom as fast as I possibly can. And I started this YouTube channel to kind of document my journey to reaching financial freedom with the goal of reaching financial freedom before I turn 30 years old. As of right now, I think I'm on track to probably be financially free by 27 or 28, kind of at the latest 29, but it really depends on the stock market, so it's kind of hard to tell. I'll keep y'all updated. But even though I care a lot about reaching financial freedom, so much so that I make all of these YouTube videos about my journey to financial freedom, the truth is that I actually don't mind working. I actually sort of enjoy working. And even once I'm financially free, I'm sure I'll stay very busy doing something. It was more so that the idea of having to spend my entire life, until 65 or 70, just working a job just to pay the bills, something that I wasn't really truly passionate about, or something that didn't feel like the absolute best use of my time, the idea of having to do that, which most people do, just felt absolutely terrible to me. I still remember when I was in high school, and I remember planning for my future, and this was the first time I was thinking about how do I really want to spend the rest of my life? What career do I want to go into? What's my life going to look like once I'm out of school? And I remember feeling extremely hopeless. I was actually really, really concerned about what life would look like because I didn't see a route to live a life that I thought was really worth living, honestly. I was not in a good place at that time. So when I realized I could be financially free and all of a sudden I could choose how to spend my time, this just felt like such an eye-opening moment for me. And this truly changed my life, and it changed how I thought about money because I realized I could start living life on my terms and I didn't have to live the life that everybody else lived. Just because my parents worked until they were 65 and just because everybody else was planning to work till 65 didn't mean that I had to do that same thing. And for me, it's just always been important to live a life that feels in some way exceptional. And what that goal has been has changed as I've, gotten older and gone through different phases of life. So there's been no one single goal that I've been pursuing. But throughout the entire time, it's always been very important to me that I get to do something that feels really worth doing. And working an office job and sitting in a cubicle for 40 years, that just wasn't it. It really doesn't matter what the job is. I just knew I didn't want to do that. And so when I sat down and did the math back when I was still a teenager, I realized that I could reach financial freedom by 30 years old if I took this really seriously. I knew it would require living very frugally, but that didn't seem like a huge issue for the trade-off, which was having that financial freedom so early. And I also was looking at a career in computer science, so I was pretty confident I would at least earn an okay income, which would, cover my expenses and give me a lot of room to save. Now, I'd love to explain how to do this calculation for yourself, and so you can see when you're on track to be financially free, but I can't go into that in this video, and it's very personalized. It's a very one-on-one type of thing. But if that does sound like something that you're interested in, I opened up my calendar for a bunch of free coaching calls for the next couple of weeks. So if that sounds useful, book a time. There's a link in the description where you can book a time, completely free coaching call. I'll just try and help you with whatever you're struggling with. I've worked with tons of people already, so I've done a ton of these. I've been able to help pretty much everybody I meet with. The benefit to me is that at the end, I'll ask you a few questions which help me improve this channel, make better content, help me figure out what you're really struggling with. So it's a total win-win. It's totally free. Book a time. I'd love to meet with you. But anyways, since I realized that I really wanted to reach financial freedom, and since I made this a really important goal for myself, I have been making good money. So, well, first I discovered financial freedom back when I was still in high school. So I went through college, got through that, came out with zero debt, which was great. And since I graduated, I moved near the Washington, D.C. region in an area called McLean, Virginia. And I was working for a government contractor doing data analysis. So this was a pretty high-paying job. I wouldn't be reaching financial freedom before 30 if I didn't earn at least a good income. But it wasn't a crazy income for the area. So when I started work, I had a base salary of $94,000 with some benefits. That was around a $100,000 total comp. The next year I moved up to, I think, like $107,000 per year. The year after that, I moved up to $115,000. And then this year, right before I quit, I moved up to a total base salary of $121,000. So very good income, very happy to be making that at this stage in my career. But for the area, that's really about the average income for the area. I probably just recently went over what's average in this region. Now, if you don't earn a high income, I do not want you to be discouraged. Because yes, it might not be possible to retire by 30 years old, which is what I'm trying to do, but the longer you work and the longer you save, the more time your money has to compound. So reaching financial freedom by like 40 or especially by 50, there's still tons and tons of time there, and it actually gets easier with more time as long as you're saving. So you don't need a super high income to do what I'm doing, or at least not to retire early. Maybe not by 30, that is the exception. I am rare. There's not that many people doing what I'm doing, but it's still very, very possible to retire early, even with a medium income or even with a below average income. But with that income, I was able to save in the last year in 2024, just over 80% of my income. So total take home pay, I think, was around $100,000 that year. I spent just over $20,000. So I was able to save $80,000 per year, around 80% of my income. And that's why when I turned 25 back in May, I had saved a little over $250,000. But given that I was making such good money, and given that I was only a couple of years away from reaching financial freedom, then why did I quit? Well, the answer is I didn't actually want to. So for those of you who don't know, I'm in a master's degree right now for cybersecurity analytics on top of this YouTube channel and on top of working full time. So in May, when I had turned 25, I had just finished my 7th class out of 10, so 3 more classes to do. And one of the great perks of the last company that I was working for is they would pay for that master's as long as I get good grades. But if I left, I would have to pay all of that money back. So that was not something that I wanted to do, and I did want to stay there for another couple of years, probably until I became fully financially free. The issue is that I was working for a government contractor, and if you follow the news at all, you realize that that's not a great industry to be working in right now. My company started layoffs back in like the start of April, and then they did another one at the very start of May. And my contract was ending in August, or the project I was working on. So I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and I was pretty confident that if I stuck around into the August or September timeframe, I was pretty confident I was going to be laid off. I think my company has already laid off around 1,000 people out of 9,000 total, so really big layoffs. And they're expecting probably layoffs just as big come this fall with the new government budget and as projects wind down. So if I waited to be laid off, then I wouldn't have to repay my master's degree, which would have been great. But on the other hand, I didn't want to wait longer and then have no job for a while and potentially not find a new job, as all of these people were flooding the market. So I started looking before I got laid off. And really the wake-up call was the Friday before the first layoff was scheduled. I got a call from my manager who told me that, hey, expect your project to get a stop work order, aka it'll be canceled by the government. Expect it to be canceled this morning. So the day before layoffs were going to start, I was getting told that my project was probably going away and I didn't have anything else to work on. So again, that was a little bit of a wake-up call, and I put out a few job applications that day. And that turned out to be a false alarm. By Monday, they'd actually told me that my project wasn't going to be canceled, but by Monday, another company had reached out and offered to interview me. And again, seeing the writing on the wall, knowing that I was probably going to be laid off in a few months anyways, I decided to take the job interview anyways. There were some other reasons that I was interested in leaving this job anyways, but I'll make another video about some of the other reasons that I wanted to quit. So expect that sometime in the future, but I don't know when I'll get around to making it. I was lucky enough that one of those first job applications I sent out in early April ended up turning into a job. So I was offered a new job right around the start of May, maybe the first or second week of May. And even so, I'll now have to repay all of the classes I've done on my master's degree, which is like over $25,000. The new offer from this new company still makes that worth it. So it would have been great to not have to repay that, but after the full year, I'll be settled anyways. And again, I should have a lot more job stability than I would at my last employer anyways. So given that, let me tell you about what's coming next, both in the short term, like the next 2 to 3 years, and then I'll also talk about how this impacts some of my long-term plans post 2 to 3 years. So in the very immediate term, I've moved. So this is my new place. It's a similar setup to my last place, but whereas my last place, I was living in a townhouse with 3 other roommates, this is more of a standalone house, a little more of a yard and all of that. But again, it's shared with 3 other people, which keeps my rent way, way lower than the average for this area. This is a cheaper area by a little bit compared to the last place I was living, but it's still pretty darn expensive. You're still looking at, over $2,000 for a standalone apartment. And the other big thing is that I have a new job. So I just started at my new company this past week. I'm now working for Amazon Web Services, which is the part of Amazon that deals with all of their cloud computing and their data centers and all of that. I'm what they call a technical project manager, which means I sort of work across some of the engineering teams and just help with prioritization and help with timelines and make sure that, various things get done. And I'm in the internal security team, so really the projects I'm working on, just making sure that issues get resolved and handled, just to make sure that all of the cloud computing infrastructure is super secure. And I'm very fortunate that not only was I able to find a new job in these times, so I was able to leave before getting laid off, but that I also have a higher income, so that it really makes it worth it. My total compensation will depend on how the stock does over the next few years, so it's hard to say exactly what it'll be. But right now I sort of estimate that it'll be around $205,000 per year, as opposed to the $121,000 I was making at my last company. So this is a pretty huge pay raise, right around 55%, and it should definitely make up for having to pay back the masters. So even in the first year, it should cover that cost of the masters, and everything past that should just be extra savings. So very fortunate that it all worked out. I'll also say that while it is a 55% raise, I'm not sure how much of an increase in hours worked it'll be. I'm hoping it's not an equal increase in number of hours I have to work, but it really could be. I expect to work a lot more at Amazon than I had to at my last employer. So hopefully that won't disrupt me making YouTube videos for you all, but yeah, I'll be busy. So at least for probably the next 2 or 3 years, this is where I expect to be. And I expect to be here until I become fully financially free, although again, I've just started. But let me talk sort of longer term. So once I'm financially free after that 2 or 3 years, what do I expect to do next? And one thing that's been on my mind for a long time now, probably 7 or 8 years, is I really would like to live abroad. Probably Thailand is my top pick right now, just because it's so much cheaper than so many other places. I hear great things from everybody who's gone there, and it's just an area that I don't know that much about. But the truth is that Thailand is so much cheaper than where I live right now, that if I really wanted to, I probably could have already retired to Thailand. And this was actually one of my backup plans in case I did lose my job and couldn't find a replacement. This is probably what I would have done. And as tempting as that was, I figured that since I was just a few years away from being able to retire even in America or anywhere else in the world that I wanted to, I decided it was worth it to just work a few more years, become fully financially free, just put in that work up front so that I wouldn't really have to worry about it in the future. But I still would like to retire to Thailand, even though I could probably retire anywhere. And once I do retire, I do plan to continue working. I just don't want to have to do a job for, some big, huge corporation for a job that I'm not that excited about. And I'd really like to pursue things that don't necessarily have a steady paycheck. So the plan right now is actually to spend way more time on this YouTube channel. I really enjoy working on this. I like working one-on-one with people. I like seeing the change that it makes for people. And I can help other people have the same transformation that I did. And again, this stuff changed my life. So it's really fun to work with other people and see it change their lives and see their relationship with money change and see them cut literal years, literally decades sometimes, off of their own journey to financial freedom. So this is the work that excites me the most right now. This is what I plan to do once I'm financially free. But this has changed a few times. My plans have changed a few times. So I'm not sure exactly what it will be. But even if it's not YouTube, it might be working for a startup company, which I've also been interested in before. Or it might be working for a nonprofit. And either way, I just don't want to have to rely on having a steady 2-week paycheck coming in all of the time. I want to be able to work on the stuff that I'm really excited by, that really gives me value, even if that work doesn't pay at all, or even if that work is sort of unpredictable and has inconsistent pay, or if that work is, very risky and might have a huge payoff, but might not pay anything. And to me, this is the real benefit of financial freedom, is that it gives you these options and it allows you to pursue these things that you're really interested in, but needing to have a steady paycheck and needing that pay cycle to afford your living expenses stops you from living that life. And I feel like that's the position that so many people are in. And I feel like if you ask most people if they're doing the absolute best thing with their time, if they're living the life that they really could live if they could do anything that they wanted, I think most people would say that no, they're not doing the thing that they would do if they could do anything. They're doing the thing that allows them to afford their lifestyle. So it's not that I don't want to do any work. It's not that I'll sit on a beach somewhere and do nothing. It's really just that I don't want to make any compromises with what I do. I want to be able to pursue whatever I care most about. And luckily, this new job should help me speed up that timeline a little bit. I was already so close, I'm not sure how much of a difference it'll make, but earlier I was looking at probably being financially free right around the time I turned 28, and now I actually really think I should be financially free around the time I turn 27. But again, this depends on the stock market. Since this is such a short time frame, just 2 or 3 years away, it can be really unpredictable, so it's hard to say. We'll see what happens. And last thing, I wanted to give you a heads up of what to sort of expect as we go forward. So first thing is I actually filmed a lot of videos in my last place and at my last company. So you're going to see some of those videos come out that aren't going to be like they are right now. They were made a little while ago. You might see me talk about working for that past company. And so they're a little out of date, but I think they're really valuable. I hope you get a lot of value out of them. So I still wanted to post them, but want to let you know that yes, this is actually where I live now. I work for a new company now, and things have been a little different recently. Second, if you like these update videos, just let me know, and I can do more of them to keep you updated as I'm actually going through life. Usually I schedule and make videos and plan them way in advance, but if you like these, updates much closer to when things are actually happening, I can make more of them. They're pretty stripped down, just me talking. I have some notes, but I don't have a script for this, of course. But I like keeping you updated and making sure you're following along with the journey if that's something that interests you. So if it is, let me know in the comments. I'll make more things like this. And the third thing is I'm really trying to understand how I can help more people and what problems they're really dealing with. So I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, but there's a link in the description to book a totally free coaching call. I'd love to hop on a call, try and help you with whatever you're struggling with. It gives me lots of ideas. It tells me what I need to make videos about to be as helpful as possible. So it's a real win-win. I'll help you with whatever I can help you with. And at the end, I'll just ask you a few questions so I can make this content more useful for you and more useful for other people. So looking forward to talking with you. Book that time. It'll be great. The last thing, I only sort of touched on it in this video about why I'm so extremely frugal, but I made a whole dedicated video about all the different reasons that I'm extremely frugal and how it's changed my life. And I think a lot of people have gotten a lot of value out of it so far, and I hope you will too. So I'm gonna link that video right over here. Make sure you watch it if you haven't, or watch it again if you already have, just to make sure some of those lessons sink in. Stay saving. I'll see you next time.